Hello, Lansing, and happy birthday. I'm Patty Item, the 13th village clerk for the village of Lansing. We are here to celebrate the first 120 years of our Lansing's history. I hope you take time today to reflect on what Lansing was like 120 years ago, and remember that we can celebrate because our founding fathers carefully planned a future for our village. On March 4th, 1893, the same day the village of Lansing took the vote on whether to incorporate it as a new village, a new president of the United States took office. President Benjamin Harrison, the 23rd president, ended his term in office, and Grover Cleveland, the 24th president, took office. This is my little part of this speech, you guys. All you ladies paying attention? Of course, no woman in the Lansing area voted in the election to incorporate the village of Lansing or that presidential election. In 1913, Illinois was the first state to allow women to vote in a presidential election. Lansing allowed women to vote in the election for mayor and trustees in 1919. However, the results of that election are documented as 197 man votes and 44 woman votes. It seems there was still some reluctance to accept those female votes. So much has changed in our village over the last 120 years, and we have so much to celebrate and be thankful for.
Greetings and welcome. My name is Hildegard Mueller. I am pleased to see so many people here today to celebrate a very important birthday. The village of Lansing is turning 120 years old, and I'm extremely happy that I was able to make the journey to be here with you today. You see, last week, I heard a tapping at my door. I suspected it was Old Man Hildebrandt or Mrs. Vandenberger stopping to make me aware that one of the mules or cows had wandered off again. But much to my surprise, it was actually a handsome young lad by the name of Marty McFly. He showed up with a tall and scientific fellow he called Doc, who had wildly unmanageable hair, I might add. They led me to a peculiar contraption that they called a DeLorean time machine, and they told me it would transport me to the future. And also, I am not quite sure what they meant by it, but they told me that after we finish up here today, they would take me for wings at Hooters, and we'd go and watch Back to the Future on something called a Blu-ray. I was quite skeptical about it all, but we Lansingites have always been ones to embrace adventure and look ahead to the future. I arrived in the dark of early morning right under the clock tower to spend this day with you. So I'd like to tell you a little bit about what life is like in my neck of the woods in 1893. So imagine this, if you will. The street right outside is a dirt road, and the horses galloping along create quite a cloud of dust. The sidewalks are made of wood. In the distance, you hear a whistle of a railroad train, and faint music can be heard coming from the saloon over in the halfway house. For me, the day begins early, as I hear the chickens calling to me that the sun is rising. I tap on the doors to wake the children, all 8 of them. The girls gather the eggs, milk the cows, and help get started with cooking breakfast. The boys are out to chop wood and get the fire going. Although there's a biting chill in the air on this cold morning, I make my way to the outhouse before I start my day. My husband will have a long day working in the brickyard. Along with him will be our 2 oldest sons, and they'll need a big breakfast before they go. So I get to work baking the bread and cooking the eggs. At lunchtime, it's more of the same. There's a lunch meal to be made, and our oldest daughters pack it up and put it on the wagon to take it out to the Purrington brickyard so that the men can eat it up before it gets too cold. Then there's wash to do, and ironing, and some mending to be done, and supper to prepare. The spot where you are standing right now is what I know as Christian Schultz's hay press business. Our country at present has 44 states, now that Wyoming was admitted to the Union back in 1890. There's quite a buzz over the World's Fair Columbian Exposition in Chicago this year to celebrate Christopher Columbus's arrival in the New World 400 years ago. It will also be a treat to see the new buildings in Chicago that have been rebuilt since the big fire back in '71. Some of them were built with bricks that were made right here by the hands of Lansing men, like my husband and sons. A new president will take office tomorrow, but I'll be sad to see Harrison complete his term. I always liked seeing an Indiana boy with farm roots in the White House. Baseball is quite a form of entertainment in our day. All of the local boys have a fine time playing in the Grove. The Brickyards each have a team, and there's quite a rivalry between them. In my day, there was this spectacular Chicago team called the Colts. I guess today you call them the Cubs? They've won 6 National League pennants already under Cap Anson's leadership. Really, they have? And I will bet you a penny that they are still the best team in baseball. They're not? The children are excited to be able to attend a new public school over on Indiana Avenue. It is built of brick and it's 2 stories. I've never seen such a structure built for educating elementary school students. It seems that we are entering a new era in education, and one-room schools may be history. I hear that a modern brick building is being built over in Harvey and will offer a public high school education to any young man or woman in the township whose family has a horse and carriage to get them there. How I wish that we could manage that. And last fall, the University of Chicago held its first classes. But that's a place for the wealthy few, not for brickyard workers and farmers. A big vote is taking place that will determine if Lansing will incorporate as a village. But as a female, I won't be permitted to cast a vote. Last year, an immigrant station called Ellis Island opened in New York, and it's a beautiful sight from what I understand. At least that's what my niece wrote in her last letter. She arrived from Germany just before Christmas. It took 7 days for her letter to arrive from New York, and I picked it up from the postmaster over in the Buzak building. Things sure look different now. Nothing looks familiar. No more railroad tracks. No more farm fields. No more general stores. No horses or wagons. But I do recognize one thing. Those smiles on your faces and that gleam in your eye that says, I am a Lansingite. We embrace adventure and look ahead to the future.
I'd like to read a little information here. In a short while, you'll hear a reading of the document from 1893 that officially incorporated our village. You don't need to have a fascination with history or law to appreciate the document's significance. While in a practical sense, it represents the technical, legal creation of our village. However, in a much larger sense, it signifies the creation of our collective identity. That was the day the phrase, I am from Lansing, was born, and generations have incorporated the village into their own personal identities over that time. While we spend much of our time today looking at the past, we must not lose sight in the fact that our founders were not looking at the past, but they were looking at the future of Lansing. Like them, we must also look to the future. We must continue to build upon the foundation set forth in those documents. So in closing, happy birthday, Lansing. I'm proud of your past, but more importantly, I wish you a very bright future. Thank you.
In the year 1893, 2 elections were held in Lansing. The first election was held on March 4th in the Busak building in Lansing. Similar to a referendum, the vote was a question seeking to determine whether Lansing should formally incorporate as a village in accordance with the state law enacted 11 years prior. The ballot substantially read, in quotes, the question whether they will, and said territory shall be organized as a village by the name of the Village of Lansing, to wit, an act of the General Assembly of the State of Illinois entitled An Act to Provide for the Incorporation of Cities and Villages, approved April 10, 1872, and in full force and effect July 1st, 1872, and all acts amendatory thereof, end quote. So that's what the residents would have seen on their ballot. After the election, the ballots were delivered to the office of the Cook County Clerk in Chicago, Illinois by Mr. Astor Bang, who was paid $6 for his delivery of the ballots as well as his service as election judge. Once the ballots were delivered to the county clerk, a court proceeding was conducted by one judge and two justices of the peace to review the ballots and determine the results. I will now read a document that formally incorporates Lansing as a village under the laws of the state of Illinois. The document has two main parts. The first part is the court's announcement of the election results, which includes the official finding that a majority of the votes were cast in favor for village organization. Second, the court ordered an election of village officers to take place on April 18, 1893. The document reads as follows. The United States of America, State of Illinois, County of Cook, attesting clerk Henry Wolfe. Be it remembered that heretofore, to wit, on the 8th day of March, in the year of our Lord 1893, the same being one of the days of the March term of the County Court of Cook County, the following among other proceedings were had and entered of record in said court, to wit. In the matter of the organization of the Village of Lansing, case number 10516, we the undersigned Frank Scales, County Judge of Cook County in the state of Illinois, and George A. Dalton and Edward E. Wilder, two of the justices of peace in and for said Cook County, do hereby certify that we have canvassed the returns of an election held at Busex Hall in Lansing, with the territory hereinafter described, on the 4th day of March, A.D. 1893, for the purpose of submitting to the voters residing in said territory by the name of the Village of Lansing. We find and state the result of the election is as follows. The whole number of ballots cast was 78, one ballot being defective and not counted. The whole number of ballots cast for village organization under general law was 67. The whole number of ballots against village organization under the general law was 10. That a majority of the votes cast at said election is for village organization under general law. It is therefore ordered, adjudged, and determined that said statement of the result of said election be entered upon the records of the County Court of Cook County, in state of Illinois, and the same is done, and that said proposed village with the boundaries and name mentioned in that statement, which are identical to the boundaries and the name mentioned in the petition herein, shall be henceforth be deemed an organized village under the said act and amendatory act in said statement mentioned. And said court thereupon calls and orders an election to elect the following village officers, to wit, 1 president of said village, 6 trustees of said village, 1 clerk of said village, and 1 police magistrate. And said judge hereby affixes the time and the place of the election as follows. Said election shall be held on the 18th of April, A.D. 1893 at Busex Hall in said village. The polls of said election shall be open from 7 o'clock in the morning until 5 o'clock in the afternoon said day. That Astor Bang, William Winterhoff, and Kristen Schiltz are hereby appointed as judges of said election, and William Bissert, J.D. Sherman, and E.B. Ward are appointed clerks of said election. That in the case of failure of any judges or clerks to qualify and act as such vacancies shall be billed by the electors in the same manner as at other elections and according to law. That notice of the time and place and purpose of the election shall be posted at 10 public places within said village for at least 20 days before said election. The court finds there is no newspaper in the village. The county clerk of said Cook County is the ex officio clerk of this court and is hereby designated as officer who shall have charge of and is hereby given charge of printing the ballots of said election. The number of ballots to be printed is affixed at 500, 250 of which shall be delivered to the judges of said election according to law. The remainder shall be retained by the clerk to be given to said judge in case those first delivered are exhausted. And said election shall be conducted in all respects according to laws of the state governing general elections in villages. The judges and clerks of said election shall make the returns thereof to the county judge of said Cook County according to law. The foregoing having been given under our hands and seals this 8th day of March, A.D. 1893, at the courthouse in Chicago, in said county, signed the Honorable Judge Scales. So that is the official incorporation document. Now, following the official incorporation, as the document provided, there was going to be an election on April 18th. And the results of the election were as follows. J.D. McDonald was elected the first village president. 6 trustees were elected. J.M. Schimmelthach, William Winterhoff, George Dunkelberger, August Furrow, August C. Rust, and August Schneider. It's a good year to be named August. J.C. Tunn was elected our first village clerk, and E.B. Ward was elected police magistrate. The first board meeting was held on April 24th, where we passed our first ordinances. And our very first ordinance was an ordinance enacting a saloon license. I was just talking to your mayor, and he tells me that the matter of what goes on in saloons is a great deal of importance here still today. So the saloon license was $500 a year, payable in $250 installments. The second ordinance was enacting a peddler's license, which the fees ranged from $41 a day to $15 a year, depending on what the peddler had, 1 or 2 horses, or what their wares were. There was also a poll tax on all men voting between the ages of 21 and 50. The money was to be spent on the streets. The fourth ordinance enacted in the first meeting was a dog license. $1 for a dog, $2 for a female dog. I've sanitized what the actual ordinances has said because this actor's mother is in the audience and it is Sunday. You can use your adult imaginations. All dogs running without an official dog tag license shall be killed by the party with the authority from the board without further notice. At the second board meeting, it was reported that saloon licenses were granted to 8 proprietors. So that's 1 for every 10 voters in the village of Lansing. We had a thirsty village. It was ordered that any physician with a patient affected by a contagious disease shall post a notice on the home of the patient naming the disease printed in large letters. Finally, in June of 1894, a decision was made on the new village site for the village hall, which is at the northeast corner of Lake and Henry. The property owner, Mr. Gulshak, was paid $400 for 2 lots. And on September 4th, 1894, a bid award to build the new village hall went to Mr. Van Steenberg for the amount of $3,040. So those are some of the events that were taking place in the 1893-1894 with the village board.